Do you ever wonder what really creates change? I mean, there's a massive industry selling it all the time. People speaking all these buzzwords about how to build new relationship and find more satisfaction in their life and deeper purpose, and I'm doing it too, right? Like, and then I'm looking at it going, because here's the thing. Everybody wants real change and everybody is selling real change. But if we're honest with ourselves over a long-term trajectory of observation, the personal development and coaching world, the self-help, if you will, therapeutic journey of like becoming whole and all you can be is not that enrolling over time. There are not that many people that get next level results. And then it seems like whoever really is getting somewhere just starts selling it. And then they're just selling it to other people, saying they have it. And I mean, it looks like they do, but I always come back to that great quote by a tiny, wise, extremely wise little green alien with pointy ears, Yoda. Do or do not, there is no try. Allow me to explain further. My journey with change. Now look, I needed a lot of change at a young age. I was pretty aware that I needed some work. It was not something anyone was really going to argue with me about either. So I started to try to find avenues to change, to evolve, to get help for whatever was happening with me, which no one really seemed to be able to explain to any extent. And anyone that did explain anything that was wrong with me told me I was stuck this way forever. And since I hadn't always been this way, I didn't understand why I always was going to be stuck that way. That didn't really work for me. So I explored options and I followed some paths pretty far along. And when you do that, well, you tend to end up in a 12-step group, which I did, because when you don't have coping skills and you have a lot of trauma and pain and you know you need to change, but you don't really have a good mechanism for it, you end up relying on negative coping mechanisms more than positive ones because you don't have them and you don't understand the difference in result, which is what is going to begin to take us to what I'm really going to talk about today, which is motivation for change. Where does it come from? Because what you begin to realize is, like, take this room, for instance. I'm sitting in my office in a chair. Look at this backdrop. The whole room's gorgeous. I love sitting in here. Now, this room has not felt this cozy for several years living here. But when I really made a decision to get it done, it really took one day to really dig in and get it done. And that's what I like to use for fodder for this conversation, to say, what was that change? How can something sit for so long and then suddenly get done like that? Because I am connecting my joy with the result. So often we're connected with the difficulty of the change, the oppression of maintaining the stagnation of what is, or the heaviness or hardness of what is. It's like that little shift is so hard to get. All it really is at the end of the day is a decision. And decisions are based on how you're going to feel. And in our society, we're so far away from how we feel, or we're so busy suppressing how we feel, that getting your actual joy and satisfaction attached to your decision-making process takes some work. We're a little scrambled. But once you do that, you go, wow, like, organizing my house makes me feel so good. I love this. You do a room and you're like, wow, I feel like a whole new person. I love being in this room now. And then it's like, wow, all right, going from room to room feels really good. And it gets easier with time because I'm building that momentum. And that's kind of what 12-step groups start to show you. So you start to realize, okay, well, this is really hard and I'd rather keep things how they are, but I can't, because I can't. It's not working anymore. And so there's this willingness created in that space that says, okay, I'm going to change. And then with each step and each progression, you end up feeling better and better, to the point where the transformations that you witness in 12-step groups are absurd. Like, people walk on the door 3/4 dead, clearly never going to be any kind of use to humanity ever again. And they can become very high-functioning, phenomenal people over time. Not all the time, okay? There's plenty of cesspool stagnation. And that's the thing, is you can find whatever you're up to. So when you're really in the game of change, unless you connect your joy and how good you're going to feel when you are feeling successful and aligned and fulfilling your purpose and using your skills and doing what you're here to do, if you don't align your joy with that, you will find some other way to numb and check out and avoid until like your time here is done. Like you're allowed to delay as long as you want. And of course, if you're on an eternal timeline and realize you're kind of immortal and, this is all just part of the process, spending a lifetime or two doing research or wasting your time isn't that big of a deal. But in our perception here on this planet is still, from our view, a tragedy and really hard. And it doesn't make us feel good. I've watched people spend their whole lives in the process of trying to get well and then walking into death. And like, it's not satisfying for anyone because you're like, you didn't get anywhere. You put in all this work. So back to the little green alien. What is Yoda saying there? Do or do not. There is no try. So 12-step groups are really interesting because you see this phenomenal transformation, right? Like you can literally go from homeless, completely dysfunctional to fully functional, amazing humans in this process of these 12 steps and the way it works, if and when it is truly desired to be used as transformation. Fast forward, well, let me say one more thing. But if you're not up to transformation in 12-step groups, many people die because you're at that point. It's kind of like a fork in the road. Once you're there, like you can go to 12-step and get well or die. And it's not always that cut and dry, right? But it is a very cut and dry energy when it comes to hardcore addiction recovery, which are the only people when you're really beginning in a 12-step group, it's pretty tough, pretty dark reality. But it's a very quick dividing line because there really is very little trying at that. Either you're going to do it or you're not. Either you're going to put the substance down and do the work or not. And the results are pretty clear. And everyone makes their choice. But after that, I got into something called transformational training. And this is what started to call me forth to coaching and wanting to serve in a different way. Because in 12-step groups, I got to sponsor, which is phenomenal. And it's sort of like a form of coaching on the 12 steps, and it's free service, and it's part of what keeps you sober because receiving the service of a sponsor and then giving it is part of the spiritual healing process that is the 12 steps, the sort of divinely inspired healing process that's really powerful when desired. So, but I started to see this pattern. So in 12-step groups, it was really cut and dry. When I moved into transformational training, I started to observe people walking in the door that really wanted change and really achieved it. The wildest thing about transformational training is in the room, people change. And in the process, like as you're working with them, people exhibit tons of new dreams and desires. And it's a really wild thing. And then they leave and they slip right back to how they were. And in fact, I saw so many people that even were continuing to engage with transformational training, but we're having the same issues again and again. And then and that's what kind of started to open my eyes to this whole process of being able to be in therapy your whole life or go through the process of what it appears constant improvement. And you might look better. You might have more money. Don't get me wrong. You might get a promotion, but something is still off. So there's like minor changes, but not like the big intrinsic change I saw in 12 steps. Not it's like taking your life from here to here. And when I first got into transformational training, that's what I thought I'd found. I thought I'd found like the sober 12 steps where people really could go from here to here. And a lot of people in transformational training are from 12-step groups. Don't get me wrong. There's something about it that says there's a way to move the ball even further using this mechanism. And yet I saw a lot of people that weren't moving the ball at all, but dropping a lot of money and seeming like they were making progress. And everyone around them thought they were. And this could be seemed perpetuated into ad infinitum, right? In someone's life. And that's where I started to focus in on the green aliens comment. His insightful points, not really a comment. Shouldn't speak about Yoda that way too. It's disrespectful. Sorry, it's Master Yoda. But this do or do not, there is no try. What I began to realize is there's this ability to make it appear as if we are changing, as if we are trying, as if we are evolving. And if we're not, we think it's okay and we get out of the guilt because we're putting in the effort. it's like a show. It's almost like a form of self-help, self-development, people-pleasing. Like, I don't know who we're doing it for. Maybe it's for ourselves, to lie to ourselves that we think we want to change. That's kind of where I ended up. But here's the problem with that. All right, so somebody might say, well, who cares if they don't do it? And they're just putting on the show of trying to get well. Because at the end of the day, you're really not actually doing it, or you would change. That's the truth I had to come to, is the people who weren't really changing at the end of the day. It wasn't the mechanism that was the problem. It was that they really didn't want to. They were just making it seem like they did for some reason. And for me, I couldn't understand that because I'm a very authentic person. If I choose to do it, I'm going to do it. Even if I don't want to do it, once I've chosen it, I'll do it, you know. But I'm not going to bother doing it unless I'm there for a real reason. If I'm not up to being there for that reason, I'm not going to put on the show. But most people are that way. So we have to get deeper with it and realize that people don't know that they're doing this. And this was really the reason I want to make the video and talk about it, because I think a lot of people don't know that they're just trying to change something in their life, but they're not actually committed to doing it. That's how you know, like in the office, if my office stays messy, oh, I'm trying to get to that. I need to get to that, versus getting it done in one day. I actually wanted to get it done that day. Now, here's where the juice comes in. So we seem to think that we got something out of this perpetuality of trying to improve and change, for who I don't know. But the truth is, you continue to go through your life in the same sort of non-satisfying way. And that's the tragedy. When you really start to connect that your results can feel better, and if you actually do it instead of trying, you'll feel so friggin' amazing as you pass through things and see yourself. I shouldn't say pass through things. What does that mean? Like, when you see yourself exhibiting new behaviors, taking on new tasks in a new way, conversations you couldn't have had in the way you're having it now, continuing to push yourself out of your comfort zone to feel like you're really exhibiting all kinds of newness, whatever that is, in your life. If you're not having new experiences, new friends, new passions, or new deeper experiences in those passions and relationships and professions and whatever is playing out in your life, you are going to feel sort of stagnant and rather dead and depressed, because you are supposed to be calling that life force forward. This is the life juice. You are supposed to be passionate and having fun. And if you're not, you are not calling forth life force. When you start to realize that as you pass through the evolution and the change, you will call forward more life force. You will feel more joy. You will be more focused and passionate. That becomes your motivation for change. Whipping yourself, oh, I should, oh, blah, 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 isn't going to work. And yeah, at first you do have to dangle a little bit of a carrot and say, I'm going to feel better if I do this, because you don't have that juice, right, feeding you yet. But once you begin to get it, you can't get off of it. A lot of people feel like they need to chase other currencies, but it doesn't satisfy. And so it's about learning how you feel. Your emotional center is your most valuable currency. Learning to hold your center no matter what life throws at you. And I mean, no matter what. I don't say that lightly. Like, I am in advanced training for maintaining my center despite extreme external calamity. And that is not easy. For a long time, you just kind of bobble all over the place because you're constantly exposing yourself to stuff to make yourself bobble. But eventually, you don't bobble. Or if you bobble, it's only in those most extreme ways, which is the goal. Because once you can hold that emotional center, keep your faith, hope, and love, no matter what, you begin to have a different conversation with reality. Your ability to change, your ability to call forth, your ability to feel good amplifies. And when you can stay in a place of feeling good, you stay in a place of possibility for yourself and other people. You don't close off energy and opportunity all the time. You don't need to hide out in your house. You don't need to flip people off and yell and get upset all the time. Like, you can actually feel good no matter what is going on. Isn't that crazy? I don't care what's on the news. Or I learn to only expose myself when I can handle it and hold my center. Because when I understand that holding my emotional center is what's drawing everything to me in life. And everything to everybody else, there is no more important function for me than my own happiness and confidence in the goodness of what is. And that motivates change because it's something real. It's something true. And you do have to operate on a women of prayer at first, but you guys, not very long. This stuff picks up steam real quick. And as you pick up that steam, you begin to realize that this is the real game. And it isn't a challenge to change or grow after that. Once you start to get really well and feel good and healthy and happy, you want to maintain it that way. It's not like you want to go back to feeling sad and alone and lost and disheartened and disillusioned. So you just have to shift the thinking to the positive possibility. Be willing to believe in it for a little bit. See it begin to come to you. And then you can start to pull this thread of this new conversation. Faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. Right? Not like fear, protection, suspicion. And that's really what's at the core of the conversation.